One, two, three, four.
Hello, you're listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. We are a general interest independent bookstore located in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. This year, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've had to close our store and cancel in-person events. But SKYLIT is your neighborhood bookstore, and we are finding ways to create community even while we're far apart. In the coming weeks, we'll be putting out lots of new audio content to help you discover new books, connect with authors, and check in with your favorite booksellers. To learn more about how you can help keep SKYLIT alive, please visit our website at skylitbooks.com or check out our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to SKYLIT. This is the SKYLIT Books podcast series, and I'm your host, Maddie Gobbo, the events manager here at SKYLIT Books in Los Angeles. On the day that we are recording this, the store is closed. We have had our second sort of COVID scare. Staffer tested positive. They don't have symptoms. Everybody is getting tested and quarantining. So we are closed for in-store browsing for the next 2 weeks. We're reopening hopefully on February 10th. But yeah, I bring this up, I know this podcast, you may be listening to this many days in the future when everything seems normal again, but I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of where we are in time and what we're dealing with as booksellers on the ground, because it's scary out there. And, one of the good things about my job is that I mostly get to work from home and I get to talk to authors from the safety of my bedroom. And I'm very excited today to be talking to Catie Disabato about her new book, You Up. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, but reflecting on what a weird year it's been, all of the things we've been through together as a staff. And I just want to thank you guys for listening and being there for us, and keeping us buoyant through all of this. So thank you. All right. So today we are talking about the new novel, You Up, which is the follow-up to Catie Disabato's smart debut, The Ghost Network, which had a great cover you may have seen, a bit of an Illuminati vibe. So You Up creates a vivid portrait of a young woman investigating her best friend's disappearance while navigating codependent friendships, toxic exes, and witchy rituals. So over a frantic weekend, the main character, Eve, is investigating the disappearance of her friend, Ezra, scouring social media for clues while drowning her anger and anxiety in drinks, drugs, and spiritual cleansing. She starts to spiral as her friends try to convince her that she's overreacting, and ghosts, both real and metaphorical, continue to haunt her. When she uncovers clues to a life her friend kept hidden, Eve starts to question how much she really knows about her best friend and herself. All right, so Catie Disabato is the author of The Ghost Network, which was deemed a smart and thorny debut that reveals treasures to readers, according to the New York Times. Disabato has written essays and criticism for outlets including The LAist, BuzzFeed, and LA Weekly. She lives in Los Angeles. Catie, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be on. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and you're actually a listener of this podcast.
I am.
I'm so flattered.
It's great. I love to hear authors talk about their books. And so it's really, it's like, I feel like first time listener, long time caller vibes right now.
Well, we're so glad to have you. And I'm excited to talk more about this book because it's a very LA book and it's dealing with a lot of the kind of the moment things. We've got our ghosts, we've got our social media, we've got witches, all very LA things. And it's a noir as well. And yeah. I love a good mystery. And I think it's a great time to be talking about mysteries as we are kind of experiencing a big rainstorm here in LA right now. And it's feeling especially spooky in the city.
Yeah, I actually think that noir is one of the I want to say the natural genres of Los Angeles, or one of the core sort of fiction genres that I really associate with the city. And I wanted very much like the movement of a noir book or movie with the person who's always kind of going like from location to location. I really wanted that to be part of
Hmm.
this book.
Yeah, and okay, maybe this is like a big question to start with, but why do you think LA and noir fit together so well? Like, why is that the kind of one of the iconic genres here in this city where we make all of the content?
Right. I don't know. I think that like yeah, I actually have no idea like like where the origin of the genre came from. I have this like it's you can't really see it. Let's edit that out. But yeah, I have this like book sitting behind me on the bookshelf that's like right that I'm sitting in front of that none of you can see. That is called LA Noir. And it's like a huge book and I like still haven't like fully read it and don't really understand why the genre kind of started here. So the why question is hard for me to answer. So I'm going to transition more to like a what it means, which essentially
Yes.
for me is like, you know, noir to me is a very it's very stylized genre. It's gritty but it's not realistic, you know, in everything from the way that people talk to the way that they dress to the way that they act and drink feels like very heightened. um, and that is, you know, I think one of the things that draws me to it is I don't even when I'm writing a book that has realistic characters, realistic settings or situations, I like a sort of heightened version of that, because I think that that is an element that kind of can transport you to another world when you are, you know, reading. So that's what I love about noir, and that's how I feel about noir, and that's what I wanted to put in the book. Why we have that in LA, I don't know. Maybe we were trying to like play against type. Um, you know, LA had, especially, you know, like recently the reputation of Los Angeles has changed, but if you go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, it, you know, was really thought of as just like this bright, sunny, 70 degrees and sunny every day, kind of shallow place. And noir is all about nighttime, it's all about shadows, and it's all about hidden depth. So maybe it was just like a counter narrative thing, but
Hmm.
you know, people who are like much smarter about like the history of fiction or the history of genre fiction are probably like screaming at their device right now being like, she has no idea, and I don't.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Raymond Chandler, James Elroy. We've got a lot of the heavy hitters who have kind of made their home here and set their books here. The book I always think about when I think about LA Noir is In a Lonely Place by Dorothy B. Hughes,
Yeah,
which is
I
so
haven't read
good.
that. I keep meaning to read that. It's been on my list for like ever. I
Hmm.
just haven't pried it open yet.
Well, someday you'll get to it and you'll be blown away. But the reason I bring it up is because it is all about like the secret darkness of LA, like the physical darkness. Like so much of that book is set with the main character just like driving through the canyons where it's all foggy and like, you know, shoving women out of his car and murdering them.
Oh yeah.
But like there is like I think LA has that like kind of two-facedness to it, right? Where like, yeah, it does look really shiny and beautiful and there's palm trees and sun every day, but then like the weather can shift like it has today. We have this big thunderstorm, and things get kind of dredged up from the canyons and from the mud, and I think, yeah, I think that is just part of the essence of this place. So it makes a lot of sense to be kind of updating that for our millennial era with kind of a social media noir
Yeah.
set in LA, because that is where a lot of the darkness is nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of darkness on social media. And one thing I do want to say is that, you know, this was present before I started writing the book, but it's really present in our current moment now, is that like there's like a huge dark side to social media that has to do with politics, with the shape of our society and our culture, with the way that we can, you know, even the way that we can organize or that people can organize not just in positive ways, but in really negative ways to kind of bring real world changes that are either very chaotic or very negative. One other thing to put into context is we're right in the middle of that GameStop, Robinhood, stock. I like don't want to call it manipulation because they're doing legal things, but like there's all this, and we're months out from or weeks out, excuse me, from like an organized insurrection against our country that was organized on social media. So there is this like really, really big negative dark side to the internet, to social media, that exists, that is present, and that we can't get away from thinking about. But with this book, I want to focus this conversation, and also the book itself is focused on a kind of a different emotional dark side of social media, which has like a lot less to do with like politics and the place of social media in like the world order, and more about like how shitty it feels if you like see a picture of all of your friends and they like went to the movies and they didn't invite you and you don't know why. um
The dreaded
you know
FOMO.
yeah, but that's not even, that's FOMO, but that's like not just FOMO. That's not like, oh, I wish I could be there. It's
Yeah.
like, is something wrong? Are my friends mad at me? Did I do something bad? Are they awful people? Did they just not think of me? Maybe I'm not as good friends with my friends as I thought I was. Maybe they don't really like me and never really did. Um, and so when I talk about like the dark side of social media, in regards to this book, like that's what I'm talking about, is how it can make you feel really, really bad to be online.
Yes, I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are feeling that so hard right now because online is all we have.
It's all we have, and like what people are doing online right now is like can be very contentious.
Mhm.
Um, whew, it's a complicated time.
Yes, yes. Seeing those Instagram posts of people who are traveling and having parties, and I haven't left my apartment for
I know.
months. I'm like, must be nice
Yeah,
to not care.
it's really, really bleak. It's really, really bleak. And I finished this book before, like the draft of this book was finished before COVID started. But I was editing it during the pandemic, and I mean, this is getting a little bit like inside baseball crafty stuff.
I
But
love that
hopefully
stuff
people,
though.
yeah, hopefully people care about this. But the texting format in the book was not established once I finished like the draft that was like, the story draft and whatever, because obviously a designer, a visual designer, ended up designing the interior of the book and the way that the text messages look. So just for some context, a lot of the conversations in the book happen over text, just like in real life. And they are visually represented on the page. It's kind of like the original idea was that you were sort of holding the main character's phone and could see all of her texts that were going on there, our narrator Eve. The representation that ended up on the page is a little bit more like graphic and a little bit less like literal, like looks like a phone, which I think improves the readability. But because they made this design, and then we saw the design that was slightly different than what I had envisioned when I was writing, I actually had to edit the text messages a little bit in order to fit the visual format. And so I had to read through the entire book at a certain point during COVID, skimming in some places, but really like almost reading every single word over, just to rewrite the text and make sure it all worked. It was essentially like I was rewriting, to a certain extent, almost every dialogue exchange in the book, which honestly didn't take that much time, but it meant I reread the whole book. And this book is such a pre-COVID book. like the whole weekend, it takes place over one weekend, and Eve, the narrator, is just like moving around from like bar to bar, from friend's house to friend's house, from social engagement to social engagement. And I was like, it was like, my feelings were so hurt. I was like, I just want to do one fraction of the things that she did, and I can't do anything. It's so
Yeah,
upsetting.
that's rough when your characters have more freedom than you do. But I guess that's also why we write, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So let's go back to the beginning, pre-pandemic. How did you come to this story? I wanted to ask this, for my own reasons, but also because in the marketing for this book, it's connected explicitly to your first book. But I wanted to
Yeah.
know like how connected it is to your first book and how much it's kind of its own thing.
Well, I mean, in a like literal sense of like, is this a sequel? Are there the same characters? Is it the same world? Um, no, it's not connected in that capacity. It's its own, book. But I'm still interested in the same things I'm interested in as like a person, as a writer. And so both of the books, sort of the inciting incident is somebody disappearing, somebody else looking for that person. And they're both kind of like what I would consider like a weird mystery. It doesn't really follow the exact beats of a thriller, but there is a sense of like, this thing happened and we don't know why. And so I think that they're sort of like very spiritually aligned. I do think that like if you like one of the books, you'll like the other, even though the writing style is really different in them. Um, but I think that they kind of cover sort of like a similar like vibe space, if that makes sense. Was there another part to that question? I'm forgetting.
Yeah, well, just like what was kind of the seed of this book, or what kind
Right.
of was the inspiration for it?
So I think that I can't like really talk about where this book came from without mentioning that, right after my first book came out, I started writing another one, and I spent like 2 years on it, and it just like did not work. Like it for years, it did not work. I could not find a book from the idea I had. I could not find real people from the characters. It just didn't work, and I was getting frustrated. And I did this like very typical writer thing where I was like, well, I've spent 2 years on it. I have to keep working on it. All this time is gone. Um, but then I got the idea for this book, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I got the idea for this book, and I said to myself, I'm just gonna work on it for a month. I'm just gonna work on it for a month and see how much I can get done. And I think that was like the most productive writing month of my entire life. I've never written that more before or after, and like might ever. I think I wrote like, I mean, this might not sound like a lot for a lot of people, but for me it was huge. I think I wrote like 23 to 25,000 words that month, and that is like,
That's
that's
huge.
insane. That's huge. Like that is in a very productive month for me normally. Like, and this is like high-end productive 10,000 words. And that is like deliberate, focused work, not like necessarily every day, but like in a consistent way, I can maybe hit that. And this just like tumbled out. And I think part of that is like I just like was it was the other book was like it was like pulling teeth getting like paragraphs on the page, and that's why I think I had just like a lot of pent up writing juice that was ready to spill out. So
Writing shoot.
gross.
That's so gross.
Sorry, it's so gross.
But I think
Um,
accurate. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't want to be like writing energy because I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, so that's kind of how this book got going. And then after that month, of course, I continued writing it until I was done. Um, but I think the idea, as with all of my books, it kind of combined a lot of things I've been interested in for a really long time. Like I love sort of supernatural stories. I always used to watch when I was a teenager, and still now I watch a lot of like supernatural teen dramas. I like ghost story horror movies, and ghost stories that are not horror. I like gothic fiction, um, and so it kind of brought in all of these vibes that I uh, really like in the fiction that I read. And I was also very kind of inspired um, by the movie Personal Shopper. I don't know if you've seen that with
Oh,
Kristen
so
Stewart.
good.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
good, right? And obviously there's texting in that movie. And without spoiling the movie, it's not the exact same. The texting is a little bit more like you're not really sure who she's texting with. But the kind of vibe or idea of texting with ghosts as a concept kind of came from there, as well as it really I was really struck by the way that movie did something that I am like have been looking for in whether it's my fiction, movies, that I almost never see, which is the way that something incredibly emotional or dramatic can be happening on your phone, and yet you are just going about a normal day or a normal sequence of events, and you either can't demonstrate the emotion that you're experiencing because of what happened, or you are demonstrating it, and to any observers that emotion is contextless. um, you know, but like something is happening to you, and it might be happening over text, and it might be happening because someone posted something on Instagram, but something is happening to you because of something going on online, and including texting and online there.
Mhm.
But what you're doing in your body is totally divorced from that. You are maybe going for a walk or just sitting at your house or working at your job. And so I really wanted to bring that kind of like real thing into a book. Um, and yeah, and I was just like in a place in my life when I was spending a lot of like social time, and was sort of really out and about in LA a lot, and was really having a lot of fun. And so that's why I brought in this kind of like social element originally, though that got refined to be more of like the more emotionally complicated things I experience as part of like being like a very peripheral member of like the LA queer scene, like for, non-cis white or just cis gay men, which is, a different scene altogether.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, those were all the things that I was thinking about as I got started writing this book.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying about this kind of disassociation between your body and the intangible things that are happening in your technological self, to your technological self, the persona that you have on social media, like that is one of the most uncanny things that we've all just accepted as normal.
Yeah.
That we have these parallel lives now. Everybody has this parallel life that lives in our little phone. And it's those lives have only gotten bigger and bigger. Um, so I wanted to ask, I'm trying to think of how to transition this, I guess, going
Hard
back,
transition.
going back to dissociation. So ghosts are a big
Ghosts.
part of this book. And I like the double meaning here with ghosts and social media, to be ghosted. But in fact, in this book, the ghost is the person who is staying in touch, staying in contact.
Yeah.
Can you first tell us, what are ghosts in your mind? What is a ghost?
I mean, in my mind, or in the
In
world
the
of this book
in the
in my
book, in the
mind?
book.
Okay, okay. In this book, ghosts are, it's pretty literal, right? Ghosts are the sort of conscious essence, the essence of the consciousness of a person who once lived. And yeah, they are generally, their corporeal form tends to be pretty slippery. Like sometimes they're very corporeal, sometimes they're not, and sometimes that like form can transform into something more monstrous. But generally, they are kind of like the essence of like a person's consciousness. I'm not a religious person, but if I was, I would maybe say soul. But like that's not how I think of it. I think of it as like, the body is dead, but the consciousness lives on. But it is not unaltered by the event of having died.
Do you mind if I read a little excerpt that I think
No,
where you address this?
go for it.
All right, so I really like this quote. Ghosts are creatures constantly in that mid-transformation state, They're non-corporeal bodies, sometimes half-formed mist, sometimes a fully defined body. Sometimes that body is contorted and growling and almost fully a beast. So this is an excerpt from the book. And I think I really like your emphasis on this kind of in-betweenness, that ghosts aren't just like they've crossed over and then they're coming back to say hello. It's like, no, they're stuck in between, and what you're getting are these flashes of static coming through that are somewhat resemble who they used to be, or maybe something different. It's just very eerie and good and creepy.
Yeah. I'm
So
glad. Yeah, I tried to make them as scary as you can on the page.
yeah, they're scary. I'll warn our readers. So can you make the connection then between this version of Ghost and the kind of the ghost that's appearing to Eva via text message?
Yeah, so the ghost that Eve appears to Eve via text message is her best friend, whose name is Miggy, and he, about 1 year before the events of the book, had committed suicide, and this was a very traumatic event for Eve, but she's been able to see her ghosts all of her life. She refers to herself as a medium. That's kind of how she identifies, a medium or a witch, and so when her friend, who in life, they texted a lot, when he died, pretty soon thereafter, with like a couple of days later, he starts texting her again, um, and and so most of the ghosts that Eve encounters in the book are people that she doesn't know. She's encountering some like sort of physical manifestation of a ghost, whereas Miggy is really just a conversation partner, and somebody who is, a sounding board for her, but also somebody that kind of gives her tough love when she needs it. She does not always accept this. And so she is kind of able to continue to be attached to this person, to not let go of this person that to everybody else in her life has died, and they have or well, almost everybody, and they have spent the past year, all of their friends, working through their grief, but also moving past this event. And obviously, when a person passes, they stay with you. You never fully are like, oh, I don't care anymore and I forget, but you process your grief, which is not something that Eve has any intention of doing, because she does, and she uses the ability to text him to simply refuse to process the fact that her friend has passed away, has taken his own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that ties in really well with the kind of social media landscape we're in now, where if somebody dies, their social accounts still live on, they're still there. And even like less in a less extreme sense, like if you have a friend breakup, their social accounts are still there. You'll still see them pop up every now and again, even though you're trying to get over it and get past it.
Yeah.
The internet doesn't let you forget. It doesn't let you move on in the way that humans have done for millennia. Like that content is still out there floating around. Those personalities are still out there floating around, always ready to pop up when we least expect them.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know how many times, like I've done this, my friends have done this, but like how many times, like like a friend who is going through a breakup, or is like, a couple months like out from a breakup, like they maybe have like blocked their like ex on all the social media accounts, but if they pop open an incognito window or even just log out of their account, there's their like public Instagram, there's their Twitter, like they can see if they're like seeing somebody else, they can see what they're talking about, and the only way to avoid it is willpower, right? You cannot create a circumstance unless you are lucky enough to have an ex that's totally offline. One of my like worst exes is basically totally offline, which is like huge for me, because if that wasn't the case, it would be just my will. And if I have the willpower to stay away 23 hours a day, great, but like you slip for 1 hour and you can like fuck yourself up over and over again, anytime you slip.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you might want to read a little excerpt. If there's a good spot to read
Sure.
from.
I wonder what I should read from this. Because now that we've been talking about the ghosts, I feel like I should pull up something that's ghost-like. This is the part you will have to edit out.
I gotcha. I'm taking notes.
I'm gonna see if I can find. I think I know what I want to read from, but I just have to find it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I found it. It's just a small section.
Okay.
So this actually isn't about the ghosts, but it's about kind of what we were talking about like social media and how you have access to people. So this is from the perspective of our narrator, Eve. Her best friend, Ezra, she hears that he and his girlfriend have broken up at the very beginning of the book, and then the next morning he kind of vanishes. He stops responding to her text messages. He has temporarily deactivated his social media accounts, and Eve kind of goes from like 0 to 60 into a panic spiral about this. And so this is kind of in the midst of that spiral where she's really realizing that she doesn't know, that she's like trying to like find out where Ezra is and is trying to try to trace his footsteps a little bit, but kind of hasn't been able to find him. So it's just a quick section. Even absent, Ezra was at my fingertips. In the long backward scroll of my Instagram grid, there was his hand wrapped around a margarita glass from last weekend. There he was across the table from me at El Condor, his biggest doofy smile. Sitting on a couch on Georgie's porch, surrounded by all of our friends, waving at me in a continued loop because I'd used the boomerang setting to take the picture. There he is, sandwiched between Nosley and me at the booth at the Holloway. Naz's left arm reaching away from us to hold the phone that took the pic. Naz, Ezra, and I out at Joshua Tree, posing next to a rock where we'd stopped to take pictures because someone had graffitied the word sick boy on it. Ezra and me in the pastel outdoors chairs in the back of the garden area of the wine bar Tabula Rasa. Ezra staring at the camera and me looking somewhere off to the left. Ezra's arms outstretched under a big pink sunset. Ezra in a bar with Nosley, her face scrunched up, and him sticking his tongue out. Ezra sitting on Lydia's floor mid-conversation. Ezra looking grim at the beach. Ezra in the park. Ezra outside his building. Ezra in a Dodgers hat. The quicker I scroll, the more he blurs into unrecognizability until he has nothing but shapes and colors. At the bottom of the scroll, there is a picture of me, Ezra, and Miggy. They have their arms around me, and we all look happy.
Oof. Yeah, the volume of content is
Yeah.
just overwhelming there. Thank you for reading that.
You're welcome.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the kind of importance of this friend group and the social scene that they're in, that you're kind of breaking down in that excerpt. So you mentioned at the top of this episode that this was you were kind of writing this as you were experiencing and enjoying the LA queer community. What do you see as what did you take away from your real life experiences and put into this book? And what's the most kind of LA sort of social stuff going on in here?
Oh boy. Well, I should say that I also took experiences from, just like my actual close friends who are like a mix of people, some of whom are queer, some of whom are straight. So it's not just queer scene stuff, but I guess I would say that I'm a person who is both attracted to the scene and You can hear my cats running around. But yeah, so I mean that's very queer scene vibes, is to have my cats running around anyway. But yeah, I'm a person that's like I'm a person that likes to go out and likes to spend time socially, and so I'm attracted to any kind of like scene of my people, but I also am, intimidated and afraid of the scene. I'm also, like I'm not like a core scenester person, and I'm more of a bar person than like a club person. And a lot of the like queer scene for women or female identified people, or essentially just like any queer scene that's like not the cis het vibes male West Hollywood scene. And sorry that I called them het vibes, but like that's kind of how I feel about it.
I mean,
Um,
I live in West Hollywood, like right in the middle of Boys Town, so I know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah, it's just like the scene that's but like that scene I actively don't like. The scene that's kind of a more east side, very queer, fun party scene is a scene that like I really do want to be a part of, but it's like, but I also am like a little too scared to be like a full scene stir, but I'm also like not there. And so much of it does revolve around these like dance nights or sort of club vibe nights. And I'm much more of a bar person. And we don't really have any queer bars in the city. Bars that cater to people who aren't gay men are like don't exist really. We have nights, but not like a full-on lesbian bar or a full-on queer bar. And so what happens that I find is that we inhabit, and the scene inhabits these like queer adjacent spaces, right? Like if you, for example, a I know a couple of bartenders who are queer women, or who, and then so queer women go to the bars where those bartenders bartend, and create like a little space in there. It's like where you go, because there isn't just a bar to go to, right? It's the closest thing. Or if somebody is, like is a promoter that does one of the queer parties and also works at a different space, then that kind of gets folded in and becomes part of the queer space as well. So none of the bars that she goes to are like gay bars in the book. There are gay bars that on the east side that I sometimes go to, but like I very consciously left them out of this book. Like the Eagle's not there, Akbar is not there. What's that one called? Fault Line. That's not in there. And that's because I wanted it to very much be like this queer scene inhabiting these otherwise straight spaces, because that's like a lot of my experience with hanging out with like other queer people in a party way in Los Angeles. Another thing that is very much a hallmark of just like my in general social life in LA is house parties. That's a big thing in this city, which I think makes it different than some other major cities. Like you have a lot less of, it's my understanding that you have a lot less of a house party scene in like New York City and in like Chicago, which are the other cities I have like some understanding or experience with. And I think that's just like because of the way that LA is, obviously it's like a more sprawly kind of city. There's not really like most people that I spend time with don't live in the downtown zone. And, people like live in house-like environments when they're renters. And then there's also like people talk about how like the house party scene has something to do with like driving. And this is like historically from before there was ride sharing. Which I lived in LA before there was ride sharing, and it was like always kind of a thing, and like how to go to the bars and get home from the bars. Like I had big nights of friends' birthdays where we like got a taxi, like called a taxi. Like we were like, okay, we're gonna like reserve this car days ahead so that we can like go wild at a bar, because like that's what you had to do. But yeah, so there is a house party in the book, a big house party, and that is another sort of hallmark of the social scene for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's striking that it's all kind of these unofficial gatherings, right? These kind of like not, I don't want to say parasitic, but they're like taking place in unsanctioned spaces where that are not explicitly for them, and that also makes social media so much more important, because that's the documentation of this scene is just through individual social media, and otherwise it doesn't really officially exist.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have a permanent like location, a permanent address. And I will say there has been some like movement to make some like new queer spaces on, especially on like the east side. There's a great coffee shop, and I haven't checked in with them on COVID, and I hope they're like doing okay. But like, is Cutie still a thing? Are they still up and running? I don't remember. They were in some trouble before COVID, which is a coffee shop. So that was like a non. There's you know they want to there's a lot of people who like talk about the importance of having queer spaces that are not based around like partying and drinking, which I very much agree with that sentimentally, but as like a person that like loves bars, I'm not as hungry for it. And there was a sort of strong effort to open a new queer bar / lesbian bar in Los Angeles, lesbian bar, while also saying that like they're very inclusive of like all different kinds of queer identities, but like also connecting to the history of lesbian bars is how I understood this place. And they were kind of gearing up to like look for a space and open before COVID hit. So I think it still exists as an entity, and that will resume post COVID, but we don't have like a bar to go back to really.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the kind of old standbys have closed. I mean, over here in WeHo, we've lost Gold Coast, and up in the valley, we lost Oil Can Harry's. Those both owned
Yeah,
by the
it's
same
really
landlord.
sad.
Same
Whew,
landlord owns all those
didn't know
properties.
that.
Yes.
Classic.
Yep. I will leave that research for actual journalists. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to talk about kind of the impermanence or the sort of changeability of the LA queer scene, and how that kind of impacts these characters and how they're moving through all of these impermanent spaces. One of the other themes in the book I wanted to address, and then I think I'll see if there's anything else you want to talk about, but is witches. I mean, I want to talk about witches. Witches are the best. Witches are so cool. So I want to talk about, so Eve calls herself a medium or a witch.
Yeah.
How does she kind of think about that term, and how does that relate to like our modern understanding of what witches are and what they do?
Right. Well, Eve has like a very like matter of fact way of thinking about herself as a witch, that you know is kind of just because like there's like a very practical supernatural thing that has always been a part of her life, which is that she sees ghosts, right? So there's not really a woo-woo element to it for her historically from like childhood. I think that she's really kind of gotten into a kind of like witchy scene in Los Angeles and like likes it there and has fun, is sometimes skeptical, but like her understanding of herself is very matter of fact. She's like, I see ghosts, can communicate with them, can work on doing exorcisms, I can learn to hone this craft. The same way that somebody that like maybe has like a talent for math or a talent for knitting or pottery would think of themselves as like a potter or a knitter. That's her way of thinking of herself as like a medium. It is a thing that she does, and it's a skill that she has, that like few other people have. So that's like one element of the way that she thinks about it, and that's how she wants to present it to the reader. But I think that in the book you can see around her perspective a little bit and peel up the corners, that it is all that her like supernatural ability has been like kind of the source of some trauma in her life, and maybe a little bit, if you want to get super psychoanalytic about Eve, you can definitely think about like her relationship with her parents, and the way that that might affect the way that she deals with her relationships with friends now, because there is, in another sense, the fact that like Eve sees things that other people don't see and that other people would say are not there. And to share that information casually with the wrong person or at the wrong time, can cause all kinds of lowercase t traumas, arguments, fight, uppercase t traumas, probably, like lots of problems. And so there's hinted at in the book. And you never really see Eve think about her parents except for in like snatches of moments. I think it's pretty clear that she doesn't have a relationship with them, or her relationship with them is not based on trust, honesty, and openness. And that is because she can see ghosts. So it's kind of like a very it's like something that she wants to treat very casually, almost like anything else in her life, but of course it's not like that. And and you can kind of see the consequences of her not really acknowledging that throughout the book.
Are you a witch? Do you practice witchcraft?
I don't think that I'm not a witch. I don't think I would call myself a witch in the real sense. I think I would say that I like a witchy sort of thing, and I'm definitely like I'm very into tarot. I don't read it myself, but I have friends who are readers and like always want to hear from them. I love astrology. I love ritual. And I very much think about it as a way to kind of like it's a way to, in a safe, fun way, access like maybe more difficult things of like a person's emotional landscape or their past or like what's going on. It's like, like I could talk about like, I don't know, something I'm sad about, or somebody can do a tarot reading and we can talk about it on both this like metaphorical and very literal and very fun, like symbols and to like symbols to dissect and little mysteries about yourself, little hints at the future maybe. And so that's just such a defanged way to kind of go into these really fangy, difficult things. And so I really love it for that. And so when people are like, I don't like tarot, I'm like, okay, so there's like two things. It's that like you don't like talking about yourself, or you don't want to, or you don't want any kind of metaphorical element in talking about yourself, or you don't know what tarot is. And those are the three options to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think tarot is a really useful creative tool. I've used it for working on projects and figuring out which direction to go. And it's also just so good for processing in a way that doesn't feel like work.
Exactly.
It feels fun, and it feels like making art, like interpreting these symbols. It's great. All right, so do you want to read one more excerpt and then maybe we'll have a final question?
Sure, yeah. I think that I will, what is it? I'm trying to figure out what excerpt to read. Okay, I will, what is it? Do you have like a preference for something that's like really ghosty or something that's just like kind of like an emotional moment?
I mean, I'm always going to go for ghosts.
Okay, cool.
If I have the choice.
I'm trying to figure out where Bonnie is. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna read and I'm gonna like maybe pause because I'm gonna like skip some certain things so it's not too long of a reading. But I'm gonna read from a section here. Okay, so starting. So this section also kind of comes from when Eve is in her original kind of big panic spiral about what is going on with Ezra. And so she breaks into his house, or like knows where he keeps his keys, so goes into his apartment, which obviously is a violation. But she doesn't think of it that way. And she is looking for any clues as to where he might be. And At this point, she's thinking of Ezra as in trouble. And that is her framework right now, is that like something bad is happening and that nobody else is taking it seriously. So here she is in Ezra's apartment. And I will read to you from the section a little bit. Ezra's slender silver laptop was sitting open on his desk, magnetically drawing me in. I fit easily into the grooves of his desk chair. Flakes of his skin and stray eyebrows hair clung to his unclean keyboard. I, of course, know all of Ezra's passwords. Online, I checked his Gmail first. His inbox was clogged with an annoying wave of pointless emails. Newsletters from a dozen or so companies that Ezra had once purchased something from online. Urgent calls for donations from the Democratic Socialists of America, one from our senator's re-election campaign, one from a political action group that was either doing something good in Mexico or at the Mexico border, a notice from Bank of America that his monthly statement was available. I was tempted to delete all of them to save him the chore. Once he turned up, he might not even notice anyone had done this for him. Do we even recognize the absence of our usual digital trash? I decided not to answer that particular question now. No new emails of substance. I opened a search tab and typed "Find my iPhone" into Google. I typed in his Google ID and the alternate password he used to protect his Apple account. Once I logged in, I clicked onto the All Devices drop-down menu at the top of the page and saw the iPhone image that represented Ezra's own phone. In little gray letters, it was designated offline. I felt Lotus, Ezra's cat, rub against my ankle before I heard her claws in the wood. "I'm going to find your dad," I told her, closing his laptop and reaching down between her ears. She wouldn't tolerate the touch. She sprinted away, over her windowsill and out into the garden. It was then that I noticed the windowsill was wiped clean of cascarilla, which is a powder that she uses to keep ghosts away. And I felt a spirit gathering, the kind of spirit that liked to cut me off from the outside world. Fucking Bonnie. I found her hovering in the kitchen with her ghoulish smile and nasty bloodied fingernails, trying to hold on to human form. "Sup, Bonnie," I said. Bonnie was the ghost of a teenage girl who lived in the house that Ezra's apartment once was in the 1910s. She hated me, would have haunted me constantly if she had the power to do so, and she was deeply, passionately in love with Ezra, who of course couldn't return her love for many reasons, including the fact that he couldn't see ghosts, but also because ghost life had turned her insane. Bonnie had once tried to be cool with me, but had turned against me when I refused to be the conduit between her and Ezra so she could start something up with him. Once when she got violent and shitty, when she managed to log onto Ezra's phone and text Nosley a death threat from his number, we tried unsuccessfully to exorcise her. Bonnie's hold on the building was as strong as its foundation, and she'd stayed with the building for decades while the neighborhoods shifted. Home to a Hasidic Jewish family in the 20s and 30s, when the whole neighborhood walked every Saturday morning to Temple Beth Israel. Home to the Hispanic families in the 60s and 70s. Home to the members of the Avenues gang in the 90s. Now Bonnie hovered, mostly incorporeal, the cascarilla keeping her at bay whenever I was around. She learned internet memes over Ezra's unsuspecting shoulder. She listened to true crime podcasts with him. She scanned the fashion blogs Ezra used for research for his girl novels. She tried to stir up drama. If the rest of the world could hear the voices of the unliving, I tried to land Bonnie her own reality show. "Bonnie, honey," I said, "were you watching us last night?" "This isn't your house," Bonnie said, as usual. "This isn't your house. Get out." All of the windows rattled in their panes, a show of force that I ignored. She had gotten extra haughty and shitty since my failed exorcism, a real check on my ego. "I'll let you hang around today if you tell me where Ezra went." "You're stupid," she said, flickering. "You're as bad as that other bitch. She thinks if she can't feel me, I'm not here. She thinks I don't see how he hates eating her nasty, fishy pussy." Bonnie hated Nosley even more than she hated me. "They broke up," I said. "Isn't that nice?" Bonnie's whole body nodded. She was thirsty for ghosts, thirsty for news like that. "If you tell me when Ezra left, I'll give you something you want," I said. It was medium self-protection 101 to never make a deal with a spirit, but I was wigged out enough by Ezra's prolonged silence to slide into this slightly dangerous territory. Bonnie's eyes sparkled with the prospect of a present. Ghost facial expressions are exaggerated. Easy to read. Okay, I'll stop there.
Oh my gosh, Bonnie.
Bonnie's iconic. She's so awful.
She is. I would totally watch her reality show though.
Oh yeah, she'd be so great. Just a mess.
Yeah, where is the ghost reality show? Netflix, get on this.
Yeah, come on, guys. I guess maybe that's I never have seen this, but I keep meaning to read. I keep meaning to see What We Do in the Shadows or Los Spookies, and I feel like that probably is the vibe.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, What We Do in the Shadows is great. I haven't seen Los Spookies, but thank you for that reading. Before we end, I wanted to see first if there's anything you want to talk about. Like if there's anything I haven't asked about that you'd love to expound upon.
I feel like we've covered a lot of the fun stuff about the book. I should say that like people are saying that it's like a quick, easy, fun read. And I really love that. I love to hear that feedback. I really, as a writer, I think this is not the only thing you can do with books, but it's one thing you can do, which is like, I just want to have like a really fun read. And for the reader to just like get a lot of pleasure out of it and excitement, and it doesn't necessarily have to be more complicated than that. It can be if that happens, but that's kind of my goal and focus. And so I really hope that is people's experience.
Yeah. And you guys, if you are piqued, if your interest is piqued by this conversation, you can join us on Friday the 5th of February at 6:30. Katie's going to be in conversation with Ivy Pacoda over on Crowdcast. That's going to be free to join the live stream or watch the replay. So if you hear this after the fact, don't worry, you can still see the whole conversation up on our Crowdcast page, crowdcast.io/SkylightBooks. So I got to do my little plug. So, all right. So Catie, thank you so much for talking with me today. This has been really fun. I'm so stoked for our audience to get a little taste of your book. Get out there, order a copy from Skylight. We've got plenty. Catie, what are you working on next? Do you have anything else going on? Or are you taking a little break? A well-deserved break?
I'm working on a third novel, but it's not there yet, so I probably shouldn't like say what it is, especially with my track record, because who knows, in like 2 months I could be like, well, I just started something new. But yeah, I am working on a third novel, and a couple of other exciting things that I can't talk about yet might be coming up. But if you follow me on Twitter at Catie Alert, then you can hear all about them as they happen.
All right, you guys, get over there, follow Catie. Try to stay away from ghosts if you can, but sometimes you can't.
Thank you so much for having me again. I had a really fun time.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Again, the book is You Up by Catie Disabato, and she's going to be appearing on our Crowdcast in just a few days. So we hope to see you there. All right. Ta-ta for now.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.
I see